Hi, thank you. Thank you so much for being here to listen and watch this webinar, The Journey Within. Find your true purpose, become your best self. And I'd like to say, get ready to be transformed. Even a small shift in your thinking can be transformative for you. It can be a transformative mindset, a transformative attitude to adopt, or there can be many takeaways from this webinar. So, welcome. Hi, I'm Sonya. I'm the author of several books. This newest one is The Hero's Journey Inwards, The Ego's Journey to the Soul. I'm excited to share this work with you. This is one of my passions. This is one of the things that lights me up, as you'll hear in a poem that I wrote. So, I'm excited to share this with you because this is a spiritual concept that has carried me through living an authentic life. And I know we all want to live our life authentically. And that really does give us true meaning and purpose and contentment. So, this is about becoming a hero and being a hero. So, are you ready to become the hero that you've been waiting for? So, in the face of all the problems and the catastrophes and wars and ecological dilemmas and things, I've asked myself, where are all the heroes? Um, Wondering where they are. There's been heroes throughout history, and I'm wondering where the modern day, current, present day heroes are. Well, if you're listening, that's us. Each one of us has this opportunity to be a hero in some corner of our world and the world. And, what if we conquered our own fears? I believe the whole world hinges on the individual heroes who have conquered their own fear and lived from their soul. So I will tell you a little bit about my book. It took me 13 years to write, and I had to write 12 other books first, including a 600-page novel. The book, The Hero's Journey Inward, started on a computer that crashed, then started on a Chromebook that crashed. And at that time, I didn't know how to save files. And then it started on a new Chromebook. And I dropped it, put it down, and shelved it on my projects list for like 11 more years. And I basically had to go on the hero's journey process, the whole cycle adventure that you will learn today to bring this to you. So, this is like a self study of the hero's journey steps and stages. I told you it's my life's work. And you might want to think of this as a free or mini spiritual retreat that we're going to take. And I ask you, are you ready to take the journey within? So, are you ready to tap into the power of your soul? You might want to think of this as a time to reflect. And if there's one thing I want you to take away from this webinar is that there is a soul inside of you and a hero light. And that hero light is actually contained in the soul. And you can be the hero that you have been waiting for, and maybe the hero that the world needs now. So I invite you to grab a journal for this journey, sit back, relax, and be open-minded to learning maybe a new concept or a concept that's broken down to its bare basics, concept you might have already seen in other spiritual modalities or New Age teaching. And I said, be open to hearing some poetry because, as the famous poet John Keats said, poetry soothes and emboldens the soul to accept the mystery. And aren't we all living in such a mystery? And we're trying to solve our individual mysteries and the collective mystery. But it's not all so confusing and it's not all a mystery. There are some universal truths that we can hang on to, learn from, and like you'll see, there are stages, there's steps, there's phases, there is a process. So these are some of the books that I've written. They are available on Amazon. And the first one in this series is really The Soul Doesn't Need $1 Million. And that one is with the well, and it's 7 secrets to access power within you to discover purpose and meaning in work you love. So I had to shift from a regular job, career, to a calling. I'll show you a lot of visuals in this webinar for you to see the process and the progress we evolve as humans on a path to purpose and meaning. So the hero's journey inwards is very much like a follow-up book and a bare basics book. You're welcome to pick that up if this message really resonates with you. So I'll just read you the back of the hero's journey inwards. Have you ever wondered, what's the purpose of my life? Do you feel as if you're on a wild goose chase for the all-elusive truth? Are you craving a spiritual path to follow? Transform your ego's search for purpose and meaning into a holy journey to reclaim your soul. By undertaking this quest and applying the concept of this book to your life, you can finally find the courage to cut through the agony of not knowing who you are or why you are here. The ego's journey to the soul utilizes the amazing discovery of the hero's journey identified by famous scholar Joseph Campbell as a guide for your own spiritual path. Deep within, a monomyth is playing out in each and every one of us. This inner quest is so similar to the stages of the epic outer quest detailed by Campbell, which means we have a map that we can use as a guide. By taking this inward journey through self-transformation towards self-actualization, we can tap into the power and the intelligence of our soul and discover our hero light to be able to help and serve others. Learn how to ask yourself the right questions and mine yourself for inner gold, answers from your true self, your soul. Embark on this personal and private adventure, and you will begin to see the mythical hero's journey happening in your life. With the ego's journey to the soul, you will discover that the answers to your questions were not outside of you, but within you all along. Be brave and let this journey change your life. You can learn ways to hear the call to adventure, find and follow the golden thread, cross thresholds, defeat giants and monsters, climb spiritual staircases, open locked doors with golden keys, find inner buried treasure, and navigate your way out of the wrong woods and the wrong path. Adventure awaits. Let your journey begin. So, hi, welcome. I'm Sonya Zappone. I'm a Kripalu trained yoga teacher, a certified meditation instructor, and a transformation workshop leader, along with a life coach and a soul coach. I'm the author of several books you'll see here and some poems. I trained as an apprentice and an assistant to a former ashram member who was a disciple of Kripalu for decades. And I trained before leading my own spiritual retreats and small workshops. So my passion is seeing retreatants awaken, reignite their passions, connect to their dreams, hear their voice of their soul. It's really a magical thing to watch people become alive again. And it's what keeps me hosting and holding small self-help workshops. So I have a foundation in several of the 12-step programs. You might be familiar with them. And I believe that self-work is the most important work we will ever do. My goal is to help as many people reach the light of their soul and become the hero that they've been waiting for. So that my ultimate goal is to have heroes around the world helping and serving others from their soul power. The world needs heroes for sure. And I believe, actually, I know that the world needs you, everyone that's watching this video, this webinar. So let's dive in. Welcome to a universal journey. And I love the quote by E.E. Cummings that says, "It takes courage to grow up and become who you really are." Have you still been wondering what you want to be when you grow up. It seems like that question follows us through life. It doesn't just stop in kindergarten. And this really is a universal journey. You'll see the common threads. And it's for those speaking a spiritual path towards personal freedom, um, because it does liberate us when we get into the soul. So, I started to ask the questions when I was studying the hero's journey. What if we took a spiritual journey inwards? Is there a path? Is there a path that leads inwards? What would it look like? Would we find our true self? Can we take sanctuary in our soul? Would we emerge from our soul with that hero light? So I'm going to show you a path that has been paved through all the myths of the world, and even some religious traditions have built upon it. And when I think about paths, I think about this snippet of a poem that I heard on one of the retreats I attended. And this is how it goes. This question is one that only a very old man asks. Does this path have a heart? All paths are the same, they lead nowhere. They are paths going through the bush or into the bush. In my own life, I could say I have traversed long, long paths, but I am not anywhere. Does this path have a heart? If it does, it is a good path. If it doesn't, it is of no use. Both paths lead nowhere, but one has a heart and the other doesn't. One makes for a joyful journey. As long as you follow it, you are one with it. The other will make you curse your life. One makes you strong, and the other weakens you. And that's a quote from a mystical book by a mystic, Carlos Castaneda, The Teachings of a Different Don Juan, A Way of Knowledge. So that's just something to think about. What path have you been on? Does your path have a heart? And that's what we want to do in this journey, is get to the heart and the center of ourselves. One of the ways that I do this, and not to scare you or to be morbid, is I think about what people will say about me. And I've done a workshop where we write our own obituary. um, just to really see, are we living the life that we want told about us? You might imagine that writing this, we're not going to do this in this webinar, but it could be a journaling exercise. And I've done it several times just to see if my life is on track with who I wanted to be in the world and how I wanted to be known and what legacy I wanted to leave behind. You might want to think, what will they say about you? What will they write about you? What will they share about you? And this can be very eye-opening, because in the obituaries you might read in the newspaper online, they don't say the person had 100,000 in the bank. They don't tell you the car that the person drove. They don't say how many rooms or square feet their house was, how many bedrooms, how many bathrooms. They don't say how many social media followers generally. um, they they don't list in an obituary what you took. They list more of what you gave. So, like, they list what you gave your time to, your love to, your attention to, what were your most precious things, and the things that you gave from your heart. So I've heard it said in another way is, who are you if you're on Oprah? And what would you share with Oprah? That's another way to think about your life, your life's work. And so I do say it may be time to throw out the bucket list or revise it according to the principles and morals that you want to have, that you do have. So, what I call the usual bucket list is like a fun and excitement for egoic experiences. And you might want to start thinking about what you want to leave behind, what you want for your legacy? And that is a big question, just as big as who are you and why are you here? So it's just said another way and thought of it. I find it to be a really great journaling exercise that I've done for myself to just reflect on my life and see where I'm spending my energy. So, what is it you do and what is it you did? And you might want to see it this way. I've got a lot of visuals that I'll share with you. And at the bottom level, you will see that we have jobs, work, employment, professions. But as you go up and you become more refined, you have trades, careers, passions, occupations, and crafts. And up another level, because we want to go from lower to upper levels as we evolve in our life, in our life's work. You've got the dharma, the mission, the purpose, the true calling. And this is about becoming in alignment with yourself. So you might have to leave a few jobs that don't line up with who you are and what you're about, and don't line up with what you want said about you. And so the question to ask is, are you in alignment with your true calling and dharma, life's work? So I've been through a lot of retreats, workshops, books about finding your true calling and career of choice and life's work. And this is super important to the individual and the soul, that we be working in the area that is most meaningful to us. And it will be different for all of us. And that's why this requires an inner exploration. So imagine what would happen if we were all being our best self. What would happen in the world? What would happen if you were being your best self? What would you do if you knew how to be your best self? You might want to start looking at where you are now, where you are going, if you have a vision. And do you want to bring your best self, the best version of yourself, everywhere you go? So if you're not in that dharma actually working, you can still dive in and bring your best self to whatever you're doing. And I love this quote from Swami Kripalu. The light of one candle can light thousands. From your one candle, you can light all the candles, so the darkness goes away. He's a very wise man, and obviously a teacher of compassion. So let's keep going on this journey. It's a journey we must take for the things that are most meaningful. So I believe there's a journey that we must all take in order to be happy and feel fulfilled, and that's the journey inwards. And we must get ourselves into soul situations to serve and be fulfilled and have a meaningful life. And this is the key to personal contentment and happiness. Our soul doesn't need fame or fortune. So what does the soul need? To be needed, to be useful. It needs to serve. And let me give credit to the man that discovered this path a couple more slides over. So we go to the basics of us. Many times we get to start thinking about this when we get sick. Something is life threatening. We have a near death experience. And we these are the general basics of how we understand ourselves, that we have a mind, body, spirit, and soul. And that all of us have this in a conscience, but there is more to us. And I'm going to give you some more visuals so that you can really see yourself in new ways with new perspectives and get a new understanding. So this is the basics of what we generally know about ourselves. And we're going to go a little bit deeper today. So this is the man that I feel we have to thank for discovering the universal path, the hero's journey. We'll see this in a slide that has the whole circle mission. There was also I'll just say there was also a Catholic priest who made a similar discovery, wrote a book after traveling the world and seeing different cultures and religions, but that was banned. And so we have this college professor who studied myths and religions and compared these. He found an identifiable pattern. He called it the monomyth. He really studied the power of myth. And I was always looking for the moral and meaning of myths and stories and tellings. But what I became fascinated with was the actual journey. And he started to find a pattern and he wrote the pattern down, but he really did dive into the myth. So here is his book, The Hero with a Thousand Faces. Um, Mr. Campbell passed away in 1987. I believe he passed away in Hawaii. He was a professor of literature at St. Lawrence College in New York. And I believe he's the man, the myth, the legend. He was born Irish Catholic, and his work really did set a foundation for my work, exploring those steps, those identifiable, similar steps. And that's what we will go into. So here it is. Here is that journey, that circle for your understanding in a visual format. And you start up here as the average person, and you'll see that in so many movies and videos. It's the orphan, it's the loner, it's the average person that gets this huge call to adventure. And then there's that refusal of the call, which is the self-doubt. And they meet a mentor, they cross a threshold, they get helpers, there's an initiation, they purge their fears and their life. Um, they seek spiritual provisions and they get spiritual aid. They go into a cave. They've got a lot of roads of tests and trials. There's like a tempter or temptress. There's enemies. There's an ordeal. There's a death. Then there's a rebirth. Then they find some special weapon or sword. They get some type of enlightenment. They resurrect. They come back. And they come back to this ordinary world, which you see is the top. And that whole journey, all the chaos was down in the special world. And when they come back to the ordinary world, there's a new known, and they rescue someone. And they take this road back and they return with what's called the boon, the treasure, the gifts. And they become a master of two worlds. They become enlightened with these whatever gift they brought back. And this is an average person. And I love what Ralph Waldo Emerson says is the hero is no braver than an ordinary man, but he is braver 5 minutes longer. And it's really, when we take this, which you'll see, is we get to hear the call to help or serve, call to adventure, and we get into self-doubt and we refuse the call. We go right back to being that average person. So we don't take this in full circle, transformative circle. Some people don't get supernatural or spiritual aid, so they never enter this special world at all. They stay up here in the ordinary world. So we'll see this inside ourselves. And I really believe, the hero's journey can be a lifestyle. It's a living, breathing relationship with our fundamental power. And it requires us to understand the world and our life and ourself differently, and how we conduct ourselves in everyday life decisions and how we make those decisions. And it does require the hero's journey inwards. This is the regular hero's journey. You'll see that we have to take on our greatest adversary, which is usually ourselves. And to take this journey, you have to get to your soul. And so that's where the heroic power and force is, and that's where it lives. So how do we access that heroic power? We're going to go into our soul. How do you get that power? It requires you to get in touch with your soul. So if I'm repeating myself, it means it's important. The soul is our divine compass, and that will lead us on this circular adventure. Now, here is what would happen if we took a hero's journey, a spiritual path inward. So I'm calling the ego, this is our construct. You'll see later how I define ego, and that we're going to go from the conscious mind into the subconscious mind, which is our soul, our special world. And we're going to come up to a new normal. We're going to create that when we come through the journey from our ordinary world to a special world, from what's known to what's unknown. So you might want to think of this as the journey of your consciousness, your awareness, your ability to know things and know things at a deeper level. That's in you. So when we take this journey, it's going to be a lot of miles, but it begins with a single step. So what would happen if we took a spiritual path inwards? What would it look like? And I recognized that there were a lot of steps. And what steps can we take to become a hero? So I listed it in the terms of steps as someone who studied the 12 steps. What if they merged the hero's path inward? Because I believe, the 12 steps really does have that inherent pattern in all 12 of the steps for whatever branch or type of 12 steps. There's all different kinds. There are identifiable steps. We won't get into all of these, but if you look, the first one I have listed is acknowledge the presence of your soul. Acknowledge the existence of the ego. Admit the power struggle within. So it's very similar. There's a lot of steps. We're not going to take them all. We're going to do a brief overview of them, but you can pick up the book if you wanted all of these steps. And just like there are obvious mile markers on the hero's path, these are like stepping stones on the spiritual path, the hero's journey. And you look down here, seek mentors, guides, coaches, and allies who align with your soul's mission, and ask for help and a safe space to explore your inner world. So, a spiritual director is excellent for this. Not many people have a spiritual director or even a life coach. You might have a therapist, but they might not act as a spiritual director or a soul coach. But that's close. That's someone else that's looking at the inside of you and exploring that, creating a safe space. So yes, the book is full of this in detail, and obviously they're too in depth to tackle them all now in this introduction. But I will be hosting virtual groups online that pick up on one theme and one step and explore. So stay tuned for that, because there is a purge. Here is the purge. Empty yourself of all obstacles, guilt, and grief, and purge your pain. That's really important for processing not only grief, but your whole life's journey and being able to take steps forward into the new. So we're going to be learning a lot of lessons on this hero's journey, and wisdom that we cultivate, which is really some of the gold and some of the treasure we want to bring back to others, is our wisdom. So it doesn't matter what you've been learning in life, what area, whatever your expertise is, or whatever. A lot of people find their purpose in their pain. So whatever you've gone through, there's wisdom there. That's knowledge plus experience that you probably want to share with the world in some way. And you might want to visualize this as a quest or an adventure, but it also can be steps that you take upwards and forwards. If you're ever trying to learn something, you know that you might go around and around. You learn the same thing the first time, the second time. So a lot of times you can find purpose in what it is you're learning. So you might be learning a lesson in love or a lesson in life's work. You might be learning lessons in friendship. You might be learning lessons in community. There's so many lessons that we have to learn and be able to articulate it. So if you can label the lesson, which is, tell a story about it. That's why stories are so helpful. When you can label the lesson and articulate it, you've learned it. You can share it, pay it forward. And every time we learn, just know that if you're learning the same lesson, you're getting higher up on the lesson towards this pillar of truth. And that is a powerful question that we will journal. What lesson have you been learning over and over? And a lot of times it's a lesson of letting go. If you're a procrastinator, it's a lesson of taking the initiative, starting early, making it into small, manageable steps. So we all are learning different lessons at different times. And that will be great to be sharing these in a group. But once we get higher up, you start to see yourself at the very bottom of the staircase where you didn't know anything. This is your naive you. And as you come around and learn the lesson, you get smarter and wiser. And then you can look down and see that you've changed once you've fully integrated a lesson. We're going to ask some powerful questions that we need to ask ourselves. What's driving us to make our choices? And really believe we can separate them into two main categories: fear and love. How do we better ourselves? How do we become our best self? How do we better our relationships? How do we better our life? And you can think of a current problem you're having, and we're going to get into the soul's view, and you can take a glimmer of hope here that you can see the same problem from a different lens, and that's your soul's view of whatever situation that you have. And sometimes the powerful prayer that I have for a problem is, God or higher power, help me see this problem from my soul's view. And that's really one of my best prayers. So when we ask these questions that I'll give you later, think about questions as opening the doors to your mind. Whereas if you think you know the answer, you've closed the door to your mind. And we really can't get anywhere with all these closed doors. There has to be an open door to let some of this light in. So we're going to go to the inner self, and you might think of this as layers. It's time to go inside for the answers. So we've got this, what I call a false self, or I label it as the ego, and our true self and our soul is buried inside. So look at all that darkness and rings that we have to get through, which is protection, all protection, fear, worry. These are layers. There are layers to get to our inner self. And there is a path, and there is a way. So I like to talk about ourselves in three parts: the animal, the ego, and the soul. And this is part of what I call self-discovery. You know, back here we have to peel away these layers to get to this inner self that is like a protected light. And in here, we're realizing we are an animal, human being, have animal needs. And the knowledge that we have two parts of us, a light and a darkness. What if these parts work together? And, you know, they say the spiritual path is a path to self knowledge. And self knowledge is like an understanding or an enlightenment that gives you power, expands your choices. There is a quote, know thyself, carved into a stone at the entrance of the Apollo temple in Delphi in Greece. It's really important that we know ourselves. And I found this visual is helpful to see ourselves in parts. This is about finding balance in who you are. And to be mentally healthy, Carl Jung believed you do have to face yourself. So take a look at how we are constructed. There'll be some more visuals to really help. Each part of us, we have this internal trinity of this animal, ego, and soul. This is, I'm bringing it down to the bare basics. There's probably other parts that you can label under this, but each one is a point of power, and each one makes choices. The animal, the hungry animal, will make choices. The ego, the fearful ego, will make choices. The soul will make choices. And each choice that we make feeds one of these. So, you know, the animal might become a sugar addict, right? It could hang on to things, become a hoarder, become overweight. The ego can be very fear-based and make all choices in fear and really limit ourselves completely. An extreme situation is like agoraphobia. The ego is so fearful, so protective, it won't come out. And obviously, you've seen examples throughout. You'll see in my book examples of people who really made all the choices they made in life from their soul. um, Gandhi and others who really made soul choices and stepped into that power. Um, and this might be a reason why monks and nuns they really wanted to come out of the world, get straight down into here with God's love, higher powers love. But you want to see yourself as many parts, but one whole being. I like to give a little description of the soul, like an acronym, because they're like, what is the soul? And when we say to be true to yourself, we're saying to be true to thine own self, be true to your soul. So I've got an acronym: sacred oneness of uniting light. But there's many names to the soul. And if you know some names to the soul that you want to share, you can type them in the chat, but they can be divine compass, inner self, higher self, inner teacher, inner loving higher power, inner light core, center, internal truth, internal light, many other names. I'm starting to believe now, as I study the soul in myself and others, that this is just our DNA. And that's where it is. So if there's other names that you know of for the soul, you're welcome to type that into the chat. So, have you found your soul would be the same thing as have you found an inner loving higher power? And then here's the big question: are you in touch with your soul? Daily, hourly, at all? That's the big question. Are you in touch with your own sacredness, oneness, your own uniting light? Are you in touch with your own light in your life, in your day, in yourself? Here's another way to think of ego. It's an emanation of fear, grappling with past trauma and self-doubt, only doing its best to survive in ongoing survival mode. I'll show you a way to think of the ego as like an entity with certain aspects. But think of what we could do if we conquered our own fears, right? That's really part of this hero's journey we're going to take. And for the animal, this, you're always requiring food, shelter, water, rest, and sleep. What happens if you don't get sleep? What happens if you don't eat? And the animal's really not able to be ignored, maybe temporarily, but not 100%. And we are individually designed and injured from traumatic experiences. We are mastering the art of living, surviving, and thriving. Each one of us has a unique upbringing, training, education, and culture, and religion, and society. And this animal is looking for safety, comfort, belonging, and has a lot of curiosity. And the animal wants to learn. And seeing this animal scroll reminds me of a poem by the famous poet Mary Oliver. And it's a wild geese poem. I won't read the whole poem, but in it, it talks about loving what you love, the warm, soft animal of your body. So the quote is, you only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. So right there, that that's in you, that's part of you, and we don't want to ignore it. We want to know that it's there. So some people say this is why we're fully human and fully divine. We've got this fully human ability and then a fully divine ability. So as we journal, this is the process that we're doing, a journaling journey. And through meditation, journaling, you become more aware. So we're over here and we're not that aware of ourselves, what we're doing, why we're doing it. We're unaware. But as we do this process, this hero's journey inward, what's known becomes bigger. And what's unknown about ourselves become less. And then as we do more of this journey, you become more conscious of yourself, your life, and less unconscious of what you're doing. So we're going to process through the mind and have a progress in our journaling. So it is about change. It is about having a personal miracle. Basically, one definition of a miracle, one definition is a simple shift in perception. And that's from several spiritual traditions and teachings. You can see with love versus fear. So we could break up with our ego, which is the worst relationship we have, and connect with our soul and really partner with our soul, which is the best relationship we have. So this is what we mean about when we talk about personal transformation. Um, we're talking about the many faces of the ego. So if you see, the ego is like a construct, it's a victim. It will be scared. It's this feet freeze, flight. It's an emanation. And it will do all these things to survive and protect. And if you look at the soul, it's usually more organized and orderly. It's merciful, it's a giver, it's a caretaker, a helper, a healer. So we have these, what are we going to do with all this fear? Well, all this darkness inside of us. We really can't run from it anymore. We can't really run from ourselves. You can try to run from yourself, but you take yourself wherever you go. So we do have to face this. And what if we could access the gifts of this and use it for good purposes? So take a moment to just look at the many faces of the soul. Empathetic, sympathetic, can be a holy witness, can work hard. And you'll see that we have both of these darkness qualities. If you're triggered by anything, if you just think about something, you get triggered, you jump right into usually here. And it takes a while, usually 3 days of downtime to get back over here. So if somebody makes you angry, one of these will, come up, ignite, put a layer of protection on you. And then when you feel safe, this will come out. And this is what we're talking about, the personal transformation, how we conduct ourselves in this psyche. So, the spiritual path is in you. We're trying to get upwards. And if you think of a building, we're trying to get to the penthouse. And the spiritual path can be defined as just a path of truth or a path of connection to something greater than yourself. It doesn't have to include the word God. If you're, have an anthropomorphic God, it could be a higher power. And the spiritual path always seems to coincide with purpose and meaning, the search for purpose and meaning. And when we go up and we get higher perspectives, as we come down from the darkness of the ego, and we take this spiritual path up to this penthouse to get a higher perspective, which is you're getting into the light. This is the spiritual journey inwards. And a perspective is a particular way of seeing something. So you want to see the same thing, the problem in your life, the person in your life, just from the view of the soul. And you notice how your point of view changes as you come up out of the ego. So spiritual path can mean different things for all of us. This is one way to imagine a spiritual path. And as you use your energy in life, you're creating what they call karma. I use it just informally, not attached to any religion or past life thing, but just the consequence of using your energy, the effect of your energy in your life. How are you using your energy, and which way is it taking you? Down a darker path or a lighter path? Towards your vision and what you want, or away? So, anger has energy and it can take you both ways. So we need to know that our energy matters and what we do with our energy matters. And this is why the hero's journey is so important. So how do we access our true self? So there's a poem. It's called If You Would Grow. And poetry can be a way in to peel back the layers. And I love this poem because the ending really can be nice and startling, the kind of startling we need. And it's called If You Would Grow by Daniel Mead. If you would grow to your best self, be patient, not demanding, accepting, not condemning, nurturing, not withholding, self-marveling, not belittling, gently guiding, not pushing and punishing, for you are more sensitive than you know. Mankind is as tough as war, yet delicate as flowers. We can endure agonies, but we open fully only to warmth and light. And our need to grow is as fragile as a fragrance dispersed by storms of will, to return only when these storms are still. So accept, respect, and attend your sensitivity. A flower cannot be opened with a hammer. Take a deep breath in. If you realize that we're going to get to the center of ourselves, we got to bring our warmth and our light. So, what are the keys to unlocking our soul's power? We want to listen to our truth, which is our ultimate adventure. We're going to ask, is there anything our true self wants us to know? And these are some of the keys to access the soul, to make conscious contact with your soul: prayer, nature, journaling, reflection, meditation, yoga, and poetry. So these are keys, but we can look at them as tools. Tools for connecting to the soul can be meditation, daily meditation, journaling, yoga, taking retreats, spiritual study, music. And there can be tools that will work for different people at different times. So if you want a tool belt, you can use, if you have a tool belt, you have many things available for you to use to access your soul. And there are many tools to also get you out of the ego, out of that darkness and the fear. And the beauty is really in the contrast. So we're going to do a 5-minute journaling exercise. Let's just think for a moment now. The contrast is helpful for us to know when we're coming from the dark. You can feel when you're in the ego, and you can feel when you're in the soul, relaxed. And there's, a simple way to shine light, the light of the awareness on the darkness into you, and that is with this writing exercise. And in this way, you can dispel some of the darkness using the light of the soul force in you. So we're gonna pause right here, and we're gonna write from the ego to capture it. So we're gonna be writing from those many faces. So you probably have something fear-based, negative inside of you that needs to come out. So you can take your journal now. You could pause this video if you're watching it. Take your journal now and start writing from the ego. Take a moment to just vent the frustration, the problems, the pain, the negativity, coming from that particular voice, that voice of fear, anger. And usually you can get this out, which will help you get into writing from the soul, to get the messages to connect to your soul, to find out what your soul is saying to you. So begin, pause this video and start writing what's coming up and needs to come out of you. You can get it out on paper. Some people like to cross it all off later, crumple it up, rip it up, burn it. But we really want to get that poison out of you. This is part of the purge. So if you're watching this, you can pause and write. And maybe if you're watching this right now, just write a couple things that are really bothering you, that are on your mind. And now to make the switch to the soul, we've got to use one of those keys. Remember, we're going to use one of those keys back here to the soul. And we'll use a poem. It could be a song. This poem is called "There Are Questions for You." Can you stay as open as possible to the questions? Can you simply hear without judgment? Whatever the answers are, Be open. Be listening. Who are you? Where are you? Is it time to think about who you are and where you are? Have you asked yet, why are you here? For what purpose were you born? Have you been reflecting on your life and the journey? What is your vision? Do you have a vision? Are you feeling guided? Do you have trouble surrendering your will? Do you have an agenda that traps you? Are you closed-minded to changes of life and lifestyle? Those flaws, fears, problems, negativity, character defects are not who you are. Those faults, mistakes, errors don't make up the whole of your life. Those naysayers, critics, enemies, and haters have no true say on the totality of your existence. Those setbacks, that health challenge, that person who let you down is not the end of your story. The shame, blame, and disappointment of self and others is passing, not permanent. That loss, the burden, the times you failed do not define you. Guilt and remorse are all rooted in the past, but we aren't moving backward. We are moving towards the future. Don't carry the past in your head and heart. Put it on a shelf. Put down the heavy things you're carrying because you can't carry that weight on a vision quest. Take this reminder. Any self-inventory done has to have a balance. How you overcame all these things demonstrates your ability, resilience, endurance, and strength. You are at a threshold. How might you be more intentional going forward? The growth, the lessons learned, the wisdom has not only been gained but integrated in you. Acknowledge that the new you would face all that has been differently because you have grown, matured, and became educated by life. But not all of you has been touched. The hidden realm of your true self that has remained brilliantly unscathed. It is still speaking. It still has something to bring forth. You have buried treasure to share. As soon as you discover who you are and why you are here. So take a deep breath in. That's a poem from my next book of transformational poems. And this is the time to write from your soul. And the question is simply, what is your soul saying to you right now? You can pause this video if you're watching it later, or start with your journal. This is what my soul is saying to me right now. You have an option here if you're live to type in the chat what your soul is saying to you right now. I'll share them anonymously. It can be a very powerful time to get it out. It might be something you want to put on your own shelf or board or refrigerator to keep it close to your consciousness. We need this message from the soul, from all of our souls, to be loud and clear, to be acknowledged. I believe the soul has the internal brilliance for you in your life, your situation. So only you know what you're going through, and only you have all the details of what you're experiencing. So when we go to others for guidance and wisdom, we still have to check in with our instincts and our intuition and our soul to see if it's still the right fit for ourself and our situation. And these journaling exercises can be a daily thing. It can be a morning thing. I like to call this what the ego says and what the soul says, and it can be about the same thing. That's what's fascinating, is you can write about the same thing and think about the same thing that bothers you from the perspective of the ego, the fear voice, or the perspective of the soul. So go ahead and type in the chat what your soul is saying to you right now. If you're watching this in a video, you can comment below. I love to hear what people find being said inside of themselves and allowing that to come to the surface, to become part of that consciousness. Remember those circles of what we know and what we don't know. As we dive in deep to ourselves, we find the things inside us in that darkness that we know that are there but need to be brought up into the light. And the line of what we know and what we're aware of becomes lower, meaning we're aware of more. So thank you all for being here. And thank you for those who shared their power and their light. This is my book on Amazon. For more about the journey inwards, you're welcome to come to my blog, which will be in the links in the description, or like and subscribe to the channel or the blog. There will be more virtual workshops as well as spiritual direction and soul coaching offered individually. There will be a regular Hero's Journey transformation group online, so please look for that information or contact me if you'd like to do more spiritual study and self-help. It will be more of a circular format with sharing and facilitation with themes each week, each steps that we take and paired share. I encourage you to keep taking steps and stay inspired on your path towards your soul and your soul power, so that you can become the hero that you have been waiting for and the hero that the world needs. And I encourage you to take the hero's journey inwards daily with that writing exercise. What does the ego say? What does the soul say? Because once you take this inward journey, you can then take the mythic hero's journey outside of yourself, and you can go out there and be you and change the world for the better and for us all. So thank you all who came and listened. Pick up this book. It's available on Amazon. If you want, you can pick up the first book in the series. And I'm really glad that you came, you listened, and you were part of this information. I'd love for you to type in the chat or the description comment below, what is the one thing you're taking away from this entire hour? So our hour is up. Hopefully you have something that you've captured in your journal or your mind or your conscious awareness. But asking you to type in the chat, what is one thing you're taking away from this 1 hour webinar? Was there a pot of gold, a gem, a jewel? Go ahead and type in the chat what it is you're taking away from this webinar, from my work. I'm glad I could share my life's work with you. This is part of my dharma, part of my individual calling. So go ahead and type in the chat. You can type to everyone. You can type privately. What is one thing you're taking away from this video? So I'm getting a lot of messages, and I'm really grateful Someone says, I need to listen to my inner feelings and gut more often. How true is that? We hear our gut, we have feelings about something, but we ignore them, dismiss them, prioritize other people's feelings and needs. So that's a great one. Thank you for sharing that. See what someone else says. They realize they already have high levels of intuition. And that's a great revelation. That's your spiritual path to self awareness and self discovery. You have this inside of you. And there's a map and there's steps to take in life. If you want to embark on the hero's journey, go from the ordinary person into an extraordinary person. Someone else says they like the breakdown and the explanation of the parts of the soul. And hopefully, that basic concept of the parts of the self and seeing yourself as maybe a trinity or different parts can really help you understand what's going on inside of you and where you want to come from. Do you want to come from the ego, or do you want to come from the soul? And someone else wrote, I need to learn to ignore my self-doubt and get closer to my true self. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. The self-doubt is on every mythical journey. It's in the Bhagavad Gita. It's like one of the main themes. We all struggle with the self-doubt. And that's why the hero's journey is so important, because there's mentors, there's guardians at the gate. When you go to cross the threshold, you get that mentor to help you through the self-doubt, to help you over the hurdles of fear. And I'm really excited to have these hero journey groups coming up where we can see where we are at a threshold or a crossroads in life, and what mentor we have right now that is, or had, that helped us get through to the other side. Find the code, find the key to get on the journey deeper towards the boon, the holy grail, the quest for the grail, so that we can find our inner light, bring it to the world, find the truth, bring it to the world. So thank you all for coming and sharing and listening. I hope that you continue coming to our monthly groups, our Hero's Journey group. And I have one more person that says, for the writing exercise, it can be really hard or helpful. And if you're an introvert and you have a hard time making friends or trusting others, the journaling with yourself can be special and feel safer than sharing in a group. So, this work can be, I say self-work is the most important work you'll ever do. And you can do this self-work and self-study on your own, but I always encourage you to find connection with somebody, like a spiritual director, a spiritual study group, some type of safe community. We're all from different walks of life, cultures, religions. I believe this spans across all of that. This can be incorporated. It can be the bare basics of what's happening in the mind, the body, the heart, the spirit, the soul, and that we can live soul lives and we can change the world from an egoic world to a soul-filled, soul-based world, which would be safer, more loving, more enjoyable to live in. And that's really what we need in the world, are people to be heroes coming from their soul power, their hero power, and guiding us to more peaceful living and coexisting. So hopefully this is work that can change you at the individual, and then go out and change whatever place you work in, with children, adults, professionals. You can come from this soul power and start changing things right within your place of living. Can even start with just the people you live with. As you step into your soul and live from that authentic place, it starts to radiate outward. So it takes a lot of courage, and courage we get through connection. So hopefully you come to the Hero's Journey group, look for those links. Hoping to have them monthly, and that way you can come and take steps along that journey from that ordinary person into becoming extraordinary. So be you, and let's go change the world for the better. Thank you all for watching.